with all that being said, we are going to do our picks later on this week, but we kind of just want to take a look at all these crazy playoff scenarios heading into the weekend. The NFL has done a masterful job of scheduling these games. I told you yesterday, they got their Bills Dolphins AFC East Championship Sunday Night Football, so they didn't screw that one up. But the rest of these scenarios actually kind of interesting. Obviously, a big one. Talk about top seeds in the NFC. So, of course, Niners, they locked up the number one seed. That's done. They can pretty much chill if they want to against the Rams. It's funny. The Rams are obviously a team that they've had pretty much dominance over. I don't know why. It's just something that just happens. And, outside of the championship game a couple years ago, the Niners, they just seem to beat them a lot. I don't know why, but that's just how it turns out. So, maybe they'll try in this one. Maybe they won't. Like, I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, in this one, I would say Niners will probably rest some guys and they'll just call it a season until the playoffs start. So the real, business starts with the number 2 and number 3 seed. Obviously, again, Cowboys, they catapult up to the 2 seed because of that win and with the Eagles' loss. So I think what's most likely here, Cowboys and Eagles both win. And then you obviously get the Cowboys winning the division now because that's all they have to do to win that division and get the 2 seed is just win. Eagles will be stuck down at 5 because of their loss, regardless of what happens on Sunday for them. And then the Lions, more likely than not, they'll probably beat the Vikings. They didn't have the absolute best showing last night against the Packers. So, they'll probably beat the Vikings and then they'll be there at 3. And the real, foolishness kind of starts at number 7.
Yeah, I mean, for the NFC here, we've got it's sort of tied to the 4th and 7th seed is the NFC South. Tampa Bay losing to New Orleans yesterday opened it up much wider than it already was. If they lose to the Panthers, unlikely, then they could open up the 7th seed to some more possibilities, including themselves, and give New Orleans or even Atlanta a chance to grab the 4th seed by taking that division. That would need Tampa Bay and New Orleans to both lose. Atlanta is not in contention for the 7th seed, though. Instead, we have it's going to be either Green Bay, the Rams, the Seahawks, could be the Bucks, could be the Saints, and could be the Vikings. Vikings had a pretty bad performance last night. I don't think they're going to be able to get it. Most likely, I feel like this is going to end up being like Green Bay or Seattle after, probably the Rams will maybe lock up the 6th seed against a resting Niners team. So there's just a lot of chaos going on here. New Orleans, would love to take the division and just get the 4th seed, but they would need Tampa Bay to lose to Carolina, and then for them to get the 7th seed, they've got to have some other losses going on there. So the most likely option I think we see here is probably going to be Tampa at 4, Philly at 5, most likely Los Angeles at 6 or Green Bay at 6, and then whichever one of them doesn't get 6 is probably going to be the one that stays alive to get 7. They've been the most poised throughout the rest of the season. The Seahawks losing to the Steelers was a massive blow, and it could be pretty major from here on out. I mean, they've got a pretty good matchup with the Cardinals, but I think they need some help to get in, and I'm not sure they're going to get that help as we move into that scenario. So the AFC is just as straightforward. There's a little less confusion between the top seeds. Baltimore is locked in to the 1st seed. 2nd seed comes down to the AFC East. These 2 teams, Miami and Buffalo, one of them is going to have it, depending on whoever wins the game. Whoever loses could be the 6th seed. If Miami loses, they're guaranteed to be the 6th seed. If Buffalo loses, though, they could be anywhere from 6, 7, or out. They are in a dangerous area. If they lose this game, they need a lot of help from some other teams to figure out where they kind of land. KC is locked into the 3rd seed. If Jacksonville wins, they've got the 4th seed. And then it kind of just depends on what happens with Houston and Indianapolis, who will actually play, again, masterful scheduling. They will play on Saturday before the Jags take the field on Sunday against the Titans. So we'll figure out which of those 2 teams is in contention for the Jaguars before the Jaguars play. And then Sunday at the 1 o'clock game, we'll have the answer of who's going to take over the Jags. We'll have that kind of set up. We have the Steelers playing on Saturday as well, which is going to set some stuff up for the Bills to worry about. The Colts and Texans are also going to be things for the Bills to worry about. Everything sort of works like clockwork to eventually get down to the Sunday night game with the Bills and Dolphins. Most of the AFC chaos, though, comes down into the 6th and 7th seed. Cleveland is actually locked in to the 5th seed, which is pretty cool to see Joe Flacco come in and bring them up. Obviously, they cannot beat Baltimore for the 1 seed, so they're going to hold on to that 5 seed spot. They're a pretty dangerous 5th seed, but yeah, most of the chaos in this one comes down to the 6th seed with Buffalo, Miami, Indianapolis, Houston, the Steelers, and potentially Jacksonville if they keep fumbling around.
Yeah, the Chiefs beating the Bengals, that kind of cut off a lot of stuff too, because now obviously they won the West, eliminates everybody else in the West from even playoff contention in general.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Bengals, they're out, so that's one less team the Steelers have to worry about. And now with the Browns too, they Browns and Bengals game, it really means absolutely nothing other than final records and stats. So that one didn't mean as much as it possibly could have. Also because of the Dolphins Ravens game, the Dolphins had won, and the Ravens lost again. Browns, they could have had it. So that one kind of answered itself a lot there. Again, Ravens, they clinched #1 seed. Most likely scenario, again, East, whoever wins that one. And again, it does make sense with the timing and everything, because obviously a lot comes down to that. But whoever wins that get the #2 seed, of course, because Buffalo, they beat Chiefs. So if they get the same record, they get the tiebreaker. Dolphins, despite losing to the Chiefs, if they win, they'd have a better record anyway. So whoever gets that gets a 2 seed. I think whoever loses will probably stay at the 6 seed, because if we look at the South, that's where things kind of get weird. So I think more likely than not, Jacksonville's probably gonna win. And then whoever wins between the Colts and the Texans will get, one of those 2 bottom seeds. It just depends on what happens with the Bills. I mean, it's kind of funny that way, because obviously the Dolphins lose, they just straight up get the 6 seed, but the Bills lose, they got some other stuff going on that they kind of want to happen. Because they still want to make it into the playoffs, but they'd rather have a 6 than a 7, of course. Because you get that 2, if you get the 6 seed, you're obviously going up against the 3 seed, as opposed to if you're 7, you end up with the 2 seed. And, depending on how things happen, if the Bills lose, Dolphins get the 2 seed, and then something else happens, so you get what's more likely than not, you get a Jacksonville win, and then obviously Houston or Indy, someone has to win that. And depending on how many people the Ravens play, Pittsburgh loses, they get the 7 seed, they have to play the Dolphins again. So yeah, the real thing here is, for Pittsburgh, unfortunately for them, they have to just wait and see. Houston and the Colts, they're pretty much in, as long as whoever wins that, they're good. So for them, it's really just an elimination game there. There's no scenario, I don't think. If I'm reading this correctly here, I don't think there's a scenario where all 3 get in from the South. So, obviously the Bills or the Steelers would take one of those spots. So basically treat that Texans Colts game like a playoff game. And obviously if Jacksonville gets in based off of their win, they get the division. So it's when you look at it on paper here, it's a lot of crap going on, but really it's just a matter of really just 2 games with the Bills and Dolphins, and then the Colts Texans game for there to be really anything crazy going on here that we expect. But again, the scheduling is really good. I think they got most of the matchups correct, because obviously you got the entire NFC East playing at the same time, got the entire NFC, NFC South, I should say, playing at the same time, because of that. So I think they got pretty much all that right there. The whole West is playing at the same time in the NFC too, because you got a couple teams up there trying to get some seeding there. So it's definitely going to be a good weekend. We're going to make some picks later on, but we're also going to get ready for this semifinal that we're going to cover in a couple of days once they play tonight.